right? So from there, so when you start automation, using the Cucumber feature file, I create my step definition. Right, so step definition, and then from the step definition, I create my page factory, where I use XPath. Right, and then I use GitHub for version control. Right, so and then I connect my GitHub with my Jenkins server. For CI/CD. Right, and then this generates a report in extend report. Right, so generate extend report. So from here, like this is in a way is your framework. And then when each of them they ask you, then you can add more to it, this part.
Can you repeat
what is
steps again?
So for automation, using my Cucumber feature file, right? So you're supposed to talk about Cucumber feature file when you do your manual testing. And when you have your requirement document, you make sure it's clear, consistent, and testable, and then you create your Cucumber feature file. And then you perform your test, manual test. Just make sure expectation matches with actual. If it doesn't match, you open a ticket in Jira. So in manual, you're supposed to talk about Jira. So Jira, or in our class we're going to show Azure, right? Azure DevOps. So either Jira or Azure DevOps. This is for following your bug tracking, right? So then manual part is done. So now we're talking about automation. So for automation, simplifying it, you could do it. Anybody could do it differently. Like the same way, the information that's there, I can add all of them. But this is my way of when I simplified it. And you want to simplify your way? I memorized the whole thing, and then when I was speaking to them, this is my key point. And then I added more things. If after the interview, after I say tell me about yourself, then if they ask me anything about feature file or anything about step definition, then I went into detail. But the way I said it is, for my automation, I use Cucumber feature file to write my step definition. Using the step definition, I connect my page factory. I write my page factory with XPath. And then if they talk about XPath, then you can explain why you use XPath, because compared to other locators in my project, XPath was working much better. And XPath can do relative XPath, so that way we can handle dynamic objects, and there's more things you can do. Later on we'll talk about that. But once you talk about page factory, then we'll say, this is our project done. So when the project is done, there's many things, but this is like the most simplest version. And then we say we connect, or
GitHub.
We use GitHub for version control. So we push our code to GitHub, right? And then I use Jenkins for CI/CD. I connect my code to Jenkins for CI/CD, continuous integration, continuous delivery. Then Jenkins create action report. I send it to all my team members. Right? So then this is like very simplest version. So let's go over how you guys done. So what did you learn? If I ask you, if anybody hears polymorphism, the two words that comes to our head, overloading, overriding. So then in polymorphism, yes, obviously it's poly means multi, and morphism is a structure. So, but the fastest way to explain, he did it. Like at the end he went with overloading and overriding. So overloading, if you have a method name, suppose if you have add, right? We talk about a body. If we have overloading, you have the same method name, and you have multiple B, right? So you have multiple parameters for overloading, and overriding is going to have the same parameter and same method, right?
So this is the overloading, right?
This is overloading. You
Okay.
have same method name, but parameter change.
Okay.
Right? And in overriding, what do you think about overriding? You didn't. But you.
Body changes and the parameter and
Overriding.
overriding. Overloading, overriding. Right?
Overriding.
Then parameter only changes, but the method name.
We add parameter like int A, int B, int C.
Overriding. We're talking about overriding.
Body changes.
Body change.
Yeah, that's what I said. Yeah, I said body changes, but the other stuff remains.
Method is what?
So the method and the parameter stays the same,
Yeah,
But the
only
body
body
change.
changes.
and then what happens in overloading?
The parameter changes, method name remains the same.
So in overriding, another thing that it needs to have two different class. You need to have the extend keyword. It needs to be in two different words. You cannot do overriding in the same class. Okay, so it needs to have. So overloading. Let's go over here. Of having many. Okay, 1 second. Right. Poly means many. Morphism means structure. So now we're talking about method overloading. So you see over here the example. Are you able to see it? So over here is a good example of polymorphism with overloading. You have the method name sum, and then you have method name again sum, and method name sum. This all happening in same class. You see class calculation, right? First time it has int A, only one parameter, right? Then you have int A and int B. You have two parameters, and then you have int A, int B, int C. You have three parameters. So first one is just printing the value, and the second time is adding two values. Third time we're adding three values. So if you want to add one number, or if you want to print one number, you can use the first sum value. If you have two numbers to add, you can use the second sum value. If you want to use three numbers to add, you can use the third sum value. Right? So what's happening is we're overloading. We're naming the same thing. We're using sum
And adding.
to add. Yes. We're adding, but we're using three different methods to add three different ways, right? So one is just the number itself. You have one number. If you want to add two numbers, you can use the second one. Three number for the third one. So same class for overloading. So these are the conditions. It needs to be in the same class. It can be in multiple class too, but what's happening is you're using the same method name but different parameters. Where is the parameters? It's inside this parentheses. There's different data types, right? So you could have string, you could have int, you could have boolean, whatever it is, but you're changing the number of parameters. That's overloading. So overriding happens in two different classes. So you have a vehicle class and you have motorbike class. Motorbike extends vehicle. See? To do override, one of the condition is you have to extend it in two different classes. When you extend the value, the parent class value or parent class method becomes part of the child class. Whatever the methods that you have in the parent class, you are supposed to be able to get all the values in the child class. Now, sometimes what happens is if you have suppose 300 methods in the parent class, you want to use probably 100 of them, and then one or two of them you don't want to use what you have in the parent class. So you don't have to, if you don't want to use the parent class, then you have to write all the 100 values again in your child class. Instead, you just extend and use most of them, and two or three that you want to change the value, you can write using overriding. What you do is that you have the same method name. You see, public void move, public void move. Same method name, same parameters. You see, there's no parameter here, no parameter here. But on the first one, it's printing vehicle can move, and it says motorbike can move and accelerate. Right? So what's happening is it's using two classes, using the extend keyword. And first one is printing vehicle can move, but we're changing that inside the body
Motorbike.
to motorbike, right? So body is changing, right?
That's called overriding, like.
So that's override.
Oh.
Alright, so that's it. So it's like a capsule, right? So you don't want somebody else to see your code. The code that you want to save, you put it inside private. Right?
Hiding the
then
data.
You get your code with getter and setter. But we didn't go in that much details because we're still in the beginning stage, right? So we talked about encapsulation in terms of access modifiers. Using access modifiers, we can hide the code, right? So
By
we can
using
use
private.
So in our real life example, what we do is because everything in when they ask you a question, if you say something that's in your project you're doing, that's something will be more important or more acceptable. So what you can say, and I hope you guys remember a little bit of this. So for encapsulation, you can give an example is I use it in my page factory. We haven't done page factory yet, but what we'll do is that we will use all the locators and we'll make it as private, with access modifier as private. And then we'll use getter and setter. There's something called getter and setter to manipulate the value, modify the value. So in real life example, if they talk about encapsulation, we can explain it this way.
Okay.
Alright.
On the changer. The multiple level has the diamond problems, which can be solved with the word implements, and single and the multi-level. You basically you bring the values from the one class to other
By using the extend keyword.
by using the extend word.
I didn't go into details for
This. Okay.
on this part yet, but that's good. That's very
Sorry,
good. That's good. That's
Sorry
good.
to
That's good. So for inheritance, we talked about parent class to child class. We are getting the parent class values into child class. What we can say is in our runner class, we extend our test engine. If you want to give an example of where we use inheritance in our current project, you can say in our runner class, I use extend keyword to get my test engine. So that's something you can use. All right. Let's see.
Abstract.
Signature
But no body, no description.
and no body. Yes. So there are abstract classes and abstract method. So we gave an example of abstract method, right? So we have,
Method name.
as he said.
Method name.
Anybody else remember? Anybody else want to say? You remember?
Little bit. Like we had an example about dog and cat, dog, and like bird. Say one like bird has one.
After class, you have to extend to a different class, and there you have to declare the body. So let's see. Hiding implementation details and showing only functionalities to user. So here's one polymorphism, inheritance, encapsulation, and abstraction, right? So if you look at polymorphism, it's we're getting two different things: overloading and overriding. And then inheritance from parent class to child class. So the keyword, right? Always talk about the keyword, right? And then for abstraction, we're seeing a TV and a manual, but we're not. It could be anything. The actual value, the body could be anything. Whatever you want, you could have declared later on. As long as what you're seeing over here is you're just getting a name, and then later on you're getting an explanation in a different class. And for encapsulation, think of it like an ATM. You have money there, you know what's there, but you can only access the things that are in your account. So whatever is using the access modifier, we can hide the code, or we can only give certain type of privileges, right? So these are the 4 things for
Ops concept.
OP concept, right? And you guys want to practice some of those statements?
Yeah. I think we need.
You guys want to do it, but about my group.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, we did it, but we're a little
Wanna go
confused.
over some if else